Minnie Biddulph is a tug-of-love child. Fostered out to Mr. and Mrs. Barlow when she was only 3, they now wish to adopt her. Her natural mother, Mrs. Biddulph, has opposed this and is trying to get Minnie back. During the dispute, Mr. Barlow, who is West Indian, suddenly disappeared with the child and was later arrested with her in London. He was charged with the offence of child stealing. He's now giving evidence to the Crown Court.
Now, Mr. Barlow, can we please turn to the visit by Miss Leighton Smith to your home on December the 1st?
Yes.
You recall the visit?
Yes, sure.
What was discussed?
What was always discussed?
Yes, well, could you tell us what it was?
Well, she used to come along every Thursday for a talk. That was part of her job, you see, to make sure that we weren't knocking her about or anything.
To see Minnie was quite well?
Yes, that was a joke about knocking her about.
Yes. And what did you talk about?
Any problems, that sort of thing.
Was anything else discussed?
On that day?
Yes.
We talked about the adoption and how Minnie's mother was trying to stop it and what could be done about it.
Nothing about the council reclaiming Minnie and their intention to take her back into care 2 days later?
No.
Now, you're sure of that?
Sure, I'm sure. I would have gone through the roof if anything like that had been said.
Yes, but you were aware that the council did have the lawful right to reclaim Minnie?
Oh, yes.
Did you receive any letter from them on the matter?
No.
You're positive about that?
Look, I am not an idiot. Stop talking to me as if I was an idiot.
Mr. Barlow, learned counsel is here to assist you. You will kindly not address him in those terms.
Well, he doesn't sound like he's assisting me.
Well, he is. So you will address him in a civil manner.
Sorry, my lord. My lord.
I'm obliged to your lordship. Mr. Barlow, why did you go off to London the following day?
I thought Minnie would like a break.
Away from school?
Away from everything. Up to the smoke, to see the sights, you know.
Rather sudden, wasn't it?
I do things like that.
On impulse?
Sure.
There wasn't anything unusual in your suddenly taking off like that?
Not at all. And I told Lizzie.
You told Miss Leighton Smith?
Yes, sure. I said I might take Minnie away for a break.
Oh, no, she didn't say anything about that.
No one asked her that, did they? She knew I was going to Tom's flat. She came and saw me there.
Did she tell you why?
She said she was very worried about the adoption and wanted to talk about it. So was I, worried for Minnie's sake.
Of course. Now we come to the events of
That was
December
when
the
those
3rd.
bastards...
Yes, the day of your arrest. Yes.
Yes.
Now, would you describe what happened, please?
Well, I was asleep in Tom's flat. This was in London. When there was this great crash at the front door, and these men burst into the room, all shouting at me and shining their torches in my face.
Could you see what they were wearing?
No, I tell you! They were dazzling me.
They'd woken you up.
I was just waking up. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And then I heard Minnie crying out, and I thought, what the hell is happening? And what are they doing to her? I tried to get to her, but those bastards
There was a
stopped me.
fight.
There was one hell of a fight. But then they got these handcuffs on me and told me that they were the police. Well, I didn't know that, did I?
You didn't notice until that moment that they were the police?
No! They started kicking the hell out of me after they had got the handcuffs on me, too.
Did you at any point deny that Minnie was in the flat?
Brother, I wasn't asked.
No one asked you?
It was like I said. A lot of shouting, everyone bellowing and kicking out at once and calling me filthy bastard.
Did you see who it was who used that term?
Yes, it was him, that sergeant fellow there. He called me that.
And after the arrest, what happened then?
I wanted to see my solicitor. I'd woken up by then.
And did you contact him?
No. He said I couldn't. I said, look, man, I'll just phone. I was standing right next to the phone, see? But he said, shut up. No, I knew that was wrong. But he wouldn't budge. Twice in that flat and 3 times in the car, I said I wanted to see my solicitor, and he said no.
You do have a regular solicitor?
Yes, sure. That's him below you, Mr. Watts. He does all my work at the garage.
Now, in the car going back, did you say to the sergeant that you took the girl away in order to stop her mother getting her?
Oh, nah, that's nonsense. Why would I say a thing like that?
Why indeed, Mr. Barlow? Thank you very much.
Did you take her to the zoo?
What?
That day when you suddenly took off with Minnie. On impulse, I think you said.
Yes.
To give her a break in London.
That's right.
Did you take her to the zoo?
No.
Oh. Did you take her to Madame Tussauds, the planetarium?
We went out shopping.
Oh, well, what did you buy?
This and that.
Such as?
It was the underground, the buses, all that. It was just being there.
Oh, well, whereabouts were you?
The West End.
What streets?
Oxford Street, Regent Street, Tottenham Court Road.
Thank you. This was December, wasn't it? Did you take her to see Father Christmas?
Yes.
You showed her all the street decorations.
Yes.
Those huge lights they suspend across Oxford Street at Christmas.
Yes.
She admired them.
Sure. Very pretty.
There weren't any.
What?
There weren't any last Christmas because of the fuel crisis. They were all cancelled.
I saw them.
No, Mr. Barlow.
In the shop windows.
You said across the streets.
You said that.
And you agreed. Come. You never moved out of that flat the whole weekend, did you? You spent the entire time urgently seeking legal advice about your situation.
No.
You contacted no one about your legal position?
No one.
Not even Miss Leighton Smith?
I wasn't counting her.
Why not?
Well, when you said contacted no one, I thought...
Yes, Mr. Barlow.
Nothing.
Because she was already with you. That's what you were going to say, weren't you? She was with you most of the weekend.
What's that got to do with
Well,
it?
I'm quite sure the jury will know what, even if you don't. Did you telephone Mrs. Biddulph that weekend?
No.
So you never said to her, if you go ahead with this trying to get her back, I'll kick your teeth in.
I wouldn't say that to her.
Why not?
She haven't got any.
But that was how you felt.
Look, I didn't phone her.
Do you know her telephone number?
Yes, we've got it somewhere.
Did you telephone her on a Saturday afternoon last November?
Yes, I did. And I heard what she said about all that. Well, it ain't true. I did phone her and tell her to lay off, but I never said a word about taking her away.
What did you say?
I said something like, you lay off. Anyhow, she was so squiffy she couldn't...
Squiffy? Do you mean drunk?
She was pie-eyed.
How could you tell?
Well, her speech, it was all blurred. She couldn't speak properly.
But you've heard her testify that you woke her up. Which of us doesn't sound fuddled when woken by a telephone call?
Well, the noise. Then.
What noise?
Her television, so loud.
Oh, you could hear her television over the telephone.
That's right.
You mean you couldn't hear her properly because of the deafening volume of her television?
Right.
But she could hear you.
Why not?
In other words, although we can get no reliable version of the conversation from you, we know that she heard you quite clearly. Thank you.
No, wait a
Now
minute.
tell me, do you approve of the legal provision which makes it possible for the council to take Minnie away from you at a moment's notice?
Well, do you?
You're in the witness box.
No, I don't approve of that.
You feel strongly that it's wrong.
Yes.
And you're a man not only of strong convictions, but one who is prepared to fight for them, are you not?
Is that wrong?
Is that why you telephoned at least 3 national newspapers that weekend? All of which published items about this case in their Monday editions?
I didn't.
Indeed?
No.
Well, at least 2 of them make direct quotations from things you're supposed to have said to them. Angry foster father fights for rights. This one I tell you. You knew nothing about that.
I didn't phone.
Well, somebody did. Miss Leighton Smith, perhaps. Where was your wife in all this?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I thought at home.
But she wasn't. We've heard there's nobody at home, was there?
Well, you would have to ask her then.
Oh, I will, Mr. Barlow, believe me. Now, she's not involved in race relations work, is she?
No.
Unlike you.
Yeah, I am involved.
Deeply so.
Perhaps.
You are a member of the Fulchester Immigrants Association, the National Consultative Association for Racial Harmony, and 3 similar bodies, aren't you?
Yes.
Do you seek publicity for that cause, too?
It always helps.
Indeed it does. And is that why you have deliberately provoked this situation? And why you've written to every leading newspaper in the land inviting them to this trial?
I didn't.
But you have written to them.
Yes, but...
Drawing their attention to Minnie's plight.
I did not provoke the situation.
Did you not, Mr. Barlow? I put it to you that you knew perfectly well what your legal situation was. I put it to you that Miss Leighton Smith explained the situation to you with perfect clarity, and that you deliberately chose to abscond with Minnie to evade the law and cause a stink.
That's not true!
Miss Leighton Smith, or Lizzie, as I believe you called her, visited you at your brother-in-law's flat in London, where you discussed your next step and what action you would jointly take.
No!
And that your real motive in this whole business has not been so much Minnie's welfare as a sordid political maneuver.
That's not true! She's our daughter! Would I do that to our daughter?
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mrs. Josephine Nora Barlow, the wife of the defendant.
Yes,
Do you live with him at 73 Magazine Road?
with Minnie.
With Minnie, of course. Do you recall a visit made by Miss Leighton Smith to your house on December the 1st of last year?
Yes,
You were present?
I was in the room, or sometimes I was in the kitchen next door with the door open.
So, in effect, you were present throughout.
Yes,
Did Miss Leighton Smith make any reference to a decision by the council regarding Minnie?
no,
You're sure of that?
quite sure.
What was discussed?
Mrs. Biddulph not letting us adopt Minnie,
Yes.
that sort of thing.
No reference whatever to a legal obligation to return Minnie,
No,
nor that a council representative would be calling 2 days later to take her away from you.
no,
Have you at any stage received a letter from the Social Services Department to that effect?
we've received no letter from the council about anything for over 2 years.
I see. Have you ever had a telephone conversation with Mrs. Biddulph?
Yes, once.
And what was said?
She asked if she could come round and see Minnie, and I said no.
Nothing else?
No,
Nothing about a council person coming round and telling you you had to return Minnie?
no.
Thank you. Now, your husband's trip to London with Minnie, the weekend all the fuss is about.
Yes.
Why didn't you go with him?
Well, I didn't want to.
You wanted to stay at home?
Sure. Ray said to me, I think I'll take Minnie up to London, stay with Tom. And I said, sure,
Just like that.
just like that.
Where were you when Miss Prossett called to collect Minnie 2 days later?
Staying with a friend.
Oh, which friend was there?
You want her name?
Yes, please.
Mrs. Edna Jones, 43 Oldbury Close, Fulchester.
Just staying.
Sure, she's an old friend.
And lastly, Mrs. Barlow, are you happy with Minnie?
She's our girl.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Barlow.
How often do you attend the Fulchester General Hospital, Mrs. Barlow?
What?
Every Thursday afternoon, isn't it?
Yes,
Miss Leighton Smith comes to your house on Thursday afternoons.
yes.
So when you said that you were present on December the 1st, you weren't telling the truth.
I was there.
And at the hospital.
Well, I came back.
So you were present only at the end of the interview. Mrs. Barlow?
Yes,
And not at the beginning. Please answer.
that's right.
So when you said that you were present throughout, you were lying. And if Miss Leighton Smith had instructed your husband about returning the child in the first half of the meeting, you wouldn't have been there to hear it.
Yes, I mean,
Yes. Miss Leighton Smith is an attractive woman, isn't she?
she's pretty.
She always calls on Thursdays, does she?
Well, sometimes she...
And you're always at the hospital then?
Yes,
Please answer. Are you always at the hospital then?
yes.
So you hardly ever meet her? Do you like her?
I don't know.
Are you jealous of her?
What?
Well, doesn't it worry you that a pretty woman spends every Thursday afternoon at your house at the very time when you are invariably at the hospital?
Please. You don't understand.
Oh, but I do, Mrs. Barlow, I do. Why do you attend the hospital?
Well, I'm having treatment.
For what condition?
Oh, this can have no possible bearing on child stealing. It is merely distressing the lady.
Lord, I am conscious that this is a painful and delicate matter, and I would not presume to pursue it if I did not think it were most necessary.
Very well.
Thank you, my lord. What is your treatment for, Mrs. Barlow?
A sort of anemia.
You suffer from sickle cell anemia, don't you?
Yes,
This is a disease very common to Negroid people, but you have it acutely, don't you?
yes.
And your husband has it too.
That's right.
And so for that reason, the two of you must never...
Never have children. Right, Mr. Smarty.
I'm deeply sorry to have to mention it. But does this not also have another implication of an even more intimate nature? Is your husband having an affair with Miss Leighton Smith?
Yes,
You didn't tell the police that, did you?
please, please. I want to keep Minnie, please.
Does your lordship have any questions?
No. Thank you, Mrs. Barlow. You may leave the witness box.
I conclude the case for the defence, my lord.
Very well. Mr. Fry?
May it please your lordship. Members of the jury, this is a sad case, but we have to subdue our feelings and consider facts. It is an undisputed fact that Mr. Barlow took the child Minnie with him to London on December the 3rd. And you may well feel that the newspaper coverage given to this event and the fact that Miss Leighton Smith was involved with Mr. Barlow show that he did so deliberately to raise publicity for a cause they both supported. However, all you have to decide is whether he knew that he was legally bound to return the child on December the 3rd. If he did know that, then he was child stealing and you are bound to find him guilty. Now, you've heard from the Director of Social Services for Fulchester that she wrote to him stating his term of fostering ended on December the 3rd. And her assistant, Miss Leighton Smith, made written statements to the police and to her superior that she had also made this legal obligation perfectly clear to him. It's only in court that Miss Leighton Smith has tried to deny this, and she's been shown to be a liar. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant's motives are none of your concern. All you have to decide is whether he knew he was breaking the law when he took Minnie to London on December the 3rd. And in the light of the evidence you've heard, I submit that you have no choice but to find him guilty.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. Mr. Lotterby?
My lord. Members of the jury, the prosecution has suggested to you that this case hangs on the simple issue of whether Miss Leighton Smith was lying when she said she couldn't remember what she told the Barlows. But of course it doesn't. In reality, the matter consists of a most complex web of relationships, and I suggest genuine misunderstanding centering around this little girl, Minnie, and her future, and around what the participants honestly and truly believe to be the best for her. For this isn't a cast of villains you've seen before you, but sincere people, each striving to do his or her best for the girl. Now, you have heard Miss Leighton Smith admit that she didn't tell the truth when asked where she was those 48 hours immediately after Minnie left for London. And to lie in a court of law is a grave offence, but all that the prosecution has proved by this is that regarding that single question, she lied. The prosecution has quite failed to prove what was said or was not said to Mr. Barlow regarding the decision of the local authority, or whether any letter was received from Miss Prossett, the Social Services Director. In other words, members of the jury, it is a matter of doubt, and in such cases, my client must be given the benefit of that doubt. Members of the jury, I ask you to consider what the prosecution would have you ignore, namely the 4.5 years of love and care and affection and security which the defendant has freely given to this little girl, and weigh them against the admitted incompetence and internal strife of a local government office. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to find this man, Raymond Barlow, who has done so much for this little girl, not guilty.
Now, members of the jury, my duty is to give you guidance as to the law and to assist you, insofar as I am allowed so to do, in reaching a decision on the evidence. But you are the judges of facts. You and you alone must make up your minds on the question of innocence or guilt. Now, the accused is charged with child stealing. Contrary to Section 56 of the Offences Against the Persons Act 1861, it being alleged that between the 2nd and 4th of December 1973 he did unlawfully by force detain Minnie Biddulph. Now, to detain by force does not actually mean the use of force. It is sufficient if a person exercises control. And it is not really disputed that the defendant did detain this child. That is to say, that he exercised the control over her that he had been exercising over her for some years as a foster parent. What is disputed is that he had any knowledge that he should not have been so doing, and you may well think that that is the vital issue in this case. So the question is, are you satisfied beyond reasonable doubt either that Miss Leighton Smith told him, or that he received a letter from Miss Prossett telling him that he should return Minnie to the council on the 3rd of December? Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you're not here to decide who would make the best parent for Minnie. You must decide whether the defendant believed he was still entitled to take the child away. And you must remember, ladies and gentlemen, not to allow any sympathies that you may well feel for this little girl to sway your judgment in any way. And let me remind you once more that it is the duty of the prosecution to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. Now, should you have any such doubt, then it would be your duty to bring in a verdict of not guilty. Now, members of the jury, will you kindly retire to consider your verdict?
All stand. The prisoner will remain standing. Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict on which you're all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the accused guilty or not guilty on the charge of child stealing?
Not guilty.
Raymond John Barlow, you have been found not guilty, but before I declare that you are free to leave this court, I should like to make it clear that this case need never have been brought had the method of informing you of the termination of your fostering duties not been carried out in such an uncertain manner. And I mean by that by word of mouth and by ordinary unregistered letter. By neither means can the authorities prove that the foster parents had been properly informed of the termination. There must be some special reason for this system, but nonetheless I deplore it, since the personal distress and misunderstandings it can cause are obviously considerable, and I do hope that the authorities will make note of these observations. Raymond John Barlow, you are free to leave this court.
All stand.
Can our cameras return to watch another leading case in the Crown Court?